Hi, this is Conversations with Kim, and today we are talking about divorce without children. There are a lot of misconceptions about divorce in the state of Michigan, many dealing with legal separations or common law marriage. So, in Michigan, we do not recognize common law marriage, meaning if you've lived together for so many years with this person that you're deemed legally married. California does that, Michigan does not. So, you're just out, you're just dating, basically. There is no such thing as a legal separation. You separate from your partner, you just could still be legally liable for anything that they do, debts, things of that nature. In Michigan, there are two different types of divorce claims that you can make. The first is an actual full-on divorce, which means that you go through, you divide your assets, your debts, and at the end you are legally divorced. You are no longer tied to that person. But then there is separate maintenance. And separate maintenance just means that you do the same thing as a divorce. You go through, you separate all your assets and the debts. However, at the end, you're still legally married to that person. So under the eyes of the law, you're still married. A lot of people do that for two purposes. The biggest one is for religious reasons because under their religion, they frowns on divorce, that you can't get divorced. So this kind of loopholes that little clause that they have. And the other reason, a big one, is for insurance purposes. A lot of parties, one spouse may have really good insurance, and so they don't want to lose that benefit, so they will stay on that. However, understanding that if you were to file for a separate maintenance because you want to do that thing, and the spouse says, you know what, if we're doing this, I want to be divorced. I don't want to be tied to you anymore. Then they can file for a counterclaim for divorce, which then would make the whole thing a divorce, and you will be legally divorced at the end. You wouldn't have a choice. In order to get divorced, once you've decided that's what you want to do, there's obviously the paperwork that has to be filled out. You file that with the court, you get the other party served, and then the wheels start going. Hearings are set, or your dates for trials are set. So that way, hopefully, you can get everything worked out. In Michigan, to get divorced, the statutory time frame to wait is 60 days. So it's not a long time, but hopefully you can get everything done, decided within that time period, and you can get divorced. If you don't agree on things, then that could get drug out. So there is no set, you'll be divorced in 1 year or you'll be divorced in 60 days. It just depends on each case, so it depends. If somebody files for divorce and they start going through the process and they decide that during this wait period that they're working things out, they're going to counseling, or they decided, this was a mistake, I really don't want to be divorced from my spouse, you can file a notice with the court it's called notice of reconciliation. So basically you're telling the court you want the case to stop and be dismissed because you are now going to reconcile, and so you can do that. Understanding sometimes what happens is they do that, and after a few months of trying to work together again, they figure out they can't do it. So under the law, if you file that notice of reconciliation, you have a certain time frame which you can go back into the court and say, you know what, I was wrong, we can't reconcile, so I want to go forward with the divorce, and it can't. If you don't meet that time frame, you'll have to start all over again. So one big question we get is kind of what do we do while we're waiting for this time period to run? And the hope is that you can work together, talk together to figure out how to best to divide your assets and your debts, your house, your cars, your bank accounts, your retirements. And so you're kind of just waiting a lot of the times. If things come up where there are problems with a spouse, where you two were living together in the same house, but now you can't, now who's going to move out? You can ask the court to order somebody to move out. That is one option. And basically it's just waiting and trying to figure out what to do. And hopefully you can communicate well enough with each other to get it resolved. If not, then, obviously attorneys can get involved to help try to resolve those issues for you. We get a lot of requests for spousal support where one spouse feels the other spouse should be paying them to live off of. I had one where the lady thought she should still get spousal support even though she's living with her new boyfriend. So that was a no. Basically, spousal support is just a way to help equalize between the partners, to help one partner get on their feet and get going. Because a divorce obviously is really a financial hardship on people because you're used to the two incomes or one income and the other person stays at home. And so it really, turns everything upside down. So the court can look at a number of different factors. If you have one spouse that's making a great deal of money and the other spouse is a stay-at-home mom, let's say, then the court's going to look at saying she should be given something to help her get back on her feet. Now, there's a number of different things the court looks at when seeing if spousal support should be awarded. You know, the age of the parties, their health, how long they've been married, you know, their needs, the abilities to pay, things of that nature. So if you don't agree, the court will make that determination of if you should have some, and if so, for how long. Now, one of the biggest things they're saying, well, I've been married for 10 years, I get it. And that's not true. You know, the court, that's one of the factors, is the length of the term of the marriage. However, again, like in California, there was you've been married 10 years, I get it no matter what. And then if not, here's this. Michigan doesn't do that. There's a number of different factors, like I just said, that comes into play when determining whether support should be awarded or not. Parties don't need to have an attorney as far as a divorce or any civil litigation goes. Sometimes it's helpful to help kind of work through what are your rights, what are your options, you know, what are you actually entitled to, but you're not required to. I always say, if nothing else, if you don't hire an attorney, if nothing else, at least go see one before you file your judgment and divorce, because you may be thinking you're doing this completely right, and there are things in there that are not right or not worded right. And so when you go back and say, well, that's not what we meant, it's too bad, so sad, because that's what you wrote and that's what the court is going off of. So it's always good to talk to an attorney, at least to verify, yes, this is what you want. Because once you sign that, especially with the financial provisions, you cannot go back and change them later. They are what they are, unless you guys are in agreement to something different. So that's the problem we always get, is you've just worded something really wrong. If you have any questions about divorce, just give us a call, 517-797-6021, or you can email at office@kbergerlaw.com.